This is Alexa Linton, and you're listening to the Whole Horse Podcast. I'm coming to you from the Cowichan Valley on beautiful Vancouver Island in Canada, and I'm excited to be bringing amazing instructors from around the world to share their knowledge about all the ways that we can keep ourselves and our horses well and happy, and about some of the cutting edge techniques, training, and different aspects that are coming into the horse industry and changing it from within. I'm so excited you're here, and I'm excited about the times that we live in and the shifts that are happening in the horse industry before our eyes. Let's get started. Hey everyone, it's Alexa Linton here, and you're on the Whole Horse Podcast. And today on the podcast, I have a guest all the way from South Africa, and she is a woman that I've been following for a little bit. I found her work on Facebook and was really moved by what she was sharing about horses. And I'm really grateful that you're here with us today, Lara. Lara is here from The Gift of the Horse. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh yeah, I've been reading through your sort of description of your page this morning, and I see you have 3,000 followers on there, which actually really warms my heart because of the work that you're doing. Just knowing that there's that many people out there that are interested in this kind of journey with horses. It's really moving, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, it's been really wonderful to see people just jumping on the page and sharing a lot of love. That's actually what's been the most incredible for me is I think people get a really good feeling. It's a sacred space, and we are just here to discover what our horses are trying to teach us. And the sort of vibe, if I can say it that way, on the page is just so beautiful, and people come on and they share their stories. You know, like if I put a post together, I try and keep it really personal and really real for me. Yep. And I think that gives other people an opportunity to say, oh my gosh, the exact same thing happened to me, and I also don't ride anymore. And it's this little community, I think, that's growing.
Yeah, it's great. I read through quite a few posts this morning and in the past, and I'm really loving, the vulnerability that you share and the realness there.
Oh.
So take us back a little ways. What precipitated you wanting to start this work and start sharing in this way?
Well, I guess I started sharing also as a way of just journaling my own experiences, so I could sort of say, you know, this is what's real for me, this is what's coming up for me now, and not really having an expectation of people following me or saying, oh, you know, I feel that way too. It kind of just happened organically, and the more I felt called to be really real and to really stand in my truth, the more people came to the page and started to follow. And I guess I also, your question was why, when did you start it, and what was the beginning, I suppose. I think I had just come to a place in my life where I was really questioning if what we were doing to horses was okay. And I'd had this niggling question for many years, and I tried to find the answer in various training programs. And I really believed that in order to do the best for my horse, I had to condition her to be able to carry me and to be fit and healthy and well. But the more I conditioned her and the more I sort of put a lot of work into her, I sort of was saying to myself, but is it my right to train this horse for my use? Is it my right to ride this horse for my pleasure? And it was just a lot of sort of questions that kept coming up. And I sat with the questions and I sat with the questions. And then at the end of 2018, I actually did a yoga teacher training. And I went into the practice or into the teacher training with these questions. Is it my right to ride the horse? Is it my right to train the horse? And, you know, obviously my yoga teacher didn't stand up and give me the answer. It was kind of like this discovering and unwinding of my conditioned thinking towards the horse. And I left the teacher training absolutely 100% certain that the horse isn't there for my pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
That was a long answer.
That
Sorry.
was a great answer. And I know that, like me, you've had, many teachers in the form of horses. In particular, it sounds like your one mare, it has been very, very pivotal in your journey. Can you share a little bit about her?
Oh, she's just the most incredible being you can ever imagine. I mean, she's beautiful, first of all, aren't they all? And
Yes.
she just has a very quiet presence about her. But it's been incredible to watch her grow into herself as well. The more I've stepped back and stopped trying to make her into something that I thought she needed to be. I had these grand designs when I first came to meet Vari, that I wanted her to be my dressage horse. And the more I let go of that human idea of, I want you to be this way for me, the more she could step fully into her true purpose, or I guess one of her purposes, which was to be more herself. And through
Mm.
allowing her to be who she was fully, this crazy wild mare, I got to learn what I needed to learn from the relationship. And I think so often we come to our horses or our husbands or our friends, and we want to make them different. We want to change them. We want to kind of manipulate them. And I really learned all those years ago that people are the way they are because they need to be, and horses are the way they are because they need to be. And any amount
Mm.
of training or conditioning I was going to do was just missing the point of the relationship.
That's beautiful. And it
Oh,
sounds like with Vari, it was
yeah.
challenging. It
Oh
was,
my gosh. She was one of those typical thoroughbred mares. Although she wasn't, I know people say, if you have a chestnut and you have a thoroughbred and you have a mare, you've got your hands full. So she's not chestnut, but she literally has fire in her belly. And sometimes I lovingly call her my dragon,
yeah, I
the
was gonna
dragon.
say, she sounds like a dragon.
But I love dragons. I'm obsessed with dragons. So and she just was really honest with me. She wouldn't do the things that I wanted her to do. She stomped her foot and threw her head, and she really challenged me in every single way. And I really understood why when I came around the other side. And I thought, okay, I needed to learn that. I needed to go there. You needed to take me there. And
Mm.
it in the moment, I would often be confused. I would feel vulnerable. I would think, why does it have to be so difficult? And coming around full circle, it was like my training ground. I was being prepared for my life, for how I needed
Mm.
to show up. And it was such a gift.
Yeah.
And if I had ignored all that and tried to train it out of her, I would have missed an incredible opportunity to become the person I needed to be.
Mm. Yes. Yes. So I know from my experience with Diva that there's often pivotal moments in that journey.
Yeah,
There's things that happen that are very much like, there's the fork in the road, and you can choose, like, you know your, dare I say, adventure at that point. And oftentimes with horses it looks like, either I go the traditional route, or I do
yeah,
something different.
yeah,
So tell us about, what were some, even one of those moments with Vari, like
yeah.
where did that path kind of head off in a direction that maybe was a little less traveled, maybe even like a bit overgrown, or never used, where
Yeah.
were some of those places for you too, so the people out there listening can really kind of, find themselves in this journey that you've been on?
Well, there were so many pivotal moments, I guess, where I was being shown again and again, is this really the way you want to go? Do you really want to feel this way? Do you want to feel frustrated? Do you want to feel angry? Or do you want to embrace this moment for what it is and see the lesson. One comes to mind that was actually quite amazing. My husband, I used to rope him in to film me when I was training, because a lot of times it's good to learn when you're being filmed, are you holding your posture maybe a little bit too tense, and what's the horse doing, etc. So I would drag him down and get him to film me. And he was filming me a couple of years ago doing quite an intensive training session. I was on the ground. I wasn't riding at that point. And I was doing, pretty intensive training. And Vari's expression was agitated. She was clenched in her jaw, and she was, her whole physical being was just in resistance to what I was asking her. But I couldn't see it because I was so zoned in on trying to get the movement right. And in order for me to sort of tick that box and say, okay, we've learned this, now we can move on. And then my husband kind of, he filmed the session, and it was only like 10 minutes because at that stage I was really sort of starting to unravel from my previous conditioning. So I was doing very short training sessions, but they were still intense. Yeah. And he said to me, Lara, why don't you just like run with her and play with her for a little bit? And I said, and I was feeling a little frustrated at the session. And I said, okay, cool. I'll run with her for a little bit. And I didn't know, but he was still filming me. Yeah. So I kind of let go of all my, that energy that I was bringing, I want this and I want that. And I just thought, let's go. And I ran and I played with her, and I still had her on a halter and a lead rein, and she galloped around me and she bucked and she did a little rear and she spun at me, and I started laughing and whooping. Aww. And my husband was laughing, and it was beautiful. And anyway, I put her away and I said her goodbyes, and I went back home that evening, and my hubby sat me down. He said, I want to show you something.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know. He showed me the video of me training Vari, and he said, just look at your face in this video. And I was like focused, but it wasn't this like calm focus. It was like this determined, I want you to do this kind of focus. Yep. And Vari's physical, stepping back and seeing the video, and Vari's physical being, it was uncomfortable, it was challenged, it was held, into this position. Yep. And then he said to me, now look at this. And then he showed me the video of me just letting all that go and just running with her and playing with her, and her whole being lit up. And then I lit up, and it was just so beautiful. And I said to myself, why am I continuing with the first video, and why am I not wanting to live my life as in the second video? And he kind of said, how do you feel? And I was like, well, I want video too. So I kind of at that moment, having sort of seen myself through the video, I realized, what's the point? I want to be there, I want to have fun, I want to just enjoy the company of my horse as she wants to be, as if she were, free to express herself. So I would say that was probably the most pivotal point for me.
Yeah, for sure. Seeing it in real life, right? Like,
oh, that's what I look like.
That's why she's tense. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
And so often we miss that because we're so focused on achieving the goal that we've set out for the session. And it's so important to constantly be checking in with the horse. Where are they? And if during any of their time with you, they're feeling resistant to you being there, you are not doing the relationship any good. Mm-hmm. And most importantly for yourself, because our time with our horses is meant to be nurturing and mindful and wonderful, and we tend to get caught up in the academics.
Yes,
and
we absolutely do. Yeah.
And I do see that there is a value for safety training, so horses can be safe as they find themselves in a domesticated environment. We've domesticated them through no fault of their own, and they now are in the human world. So we owe it to them to keep them safe so they can be safely handled. But beyond safety, at the Gift of the Horse, we don't practice any training for academic purposes.
Yes. And that's something I definitely want to get into, because I think it's quite for a lot of people, they might be sitting there and going, that's a big stretch for me, right? And I love having you on, because it's like this, it's a spectrum, right? Everybody's going to fall in a different space on that spectrum. And you know, I know I do as well. I still ride my mare, and there is even yesterday. I mean, I still make mistakes with Diva, and yesterday I got into my agenda mind.
Yeah.
And I have been learning how to do mounted archery, and it was like the one day I had other people on the property that could like get my arrows and like help me out. And I was like, hey Diva, we're going to go do this. And I went out into the paddock with her halter, and she just like turned and left.
Yeah.
She's just like, no. And I'm like, but we have to, there's people here. Like, we got to do it. Like, yeah. And it was really interesting, because the whole session, of course, she was just like, this is dumb. Like, this is for you. This isn't for me. I don't care about this. And it was just this real, like, you know, she was so amazing as she is. But I could feel that in her, where she was like, you know, like, why I don't see any point in this, right? Which is understandable. Like, why? She has nothing to gain in that. You know. So I think we all kind of fall into that trap a little bit of like, I've got this thing I need to get done, or I want to get done, and you know, this is how it's going to look. So I'd love for you to share with us a little bit more of your philosophy around that, because I think for many of us, we could definitely use some pendulum shifting towards that side of things, and more understanding about, you know, about really what does it look like to have a two-way street here, you know? Where both parties are participating in a like a healthy way.
Well, that is such an amazing question. I hope I can serve you with a good answer. I think, you know, sometimes in life we're going to have an agenda. You know, the vet is coming, we've got to get the horse from the field, and I think, you know, the farrier is coming, the horse has got to stand, you know, to keep the horse safe and keep the farrier safe, or the trimmer. And I think, you know, for us to observe that within us, that recognizes, hang on, I'm coming with an agenda, and realizing that the horse's behavior, you know, like running away, when we come with that intention, come on, I've got to get stuff done, it's just, that is the learning opportunity, you know. So if we can come to our horses open to what they are showing us about ourselves, through recognizing, hang on, I've got a bit of an agenda here, that is such a beautiful lesson, and it's so powerful. And as I say, you know, some days we are going to have to take the horse and say, come on, you know, you got to hurry up, you've got to cross the road, there's a car coming. And it's about a balance for me, you know. And what I'd like to do at the Gift of the Horse is also offer people a bridge between what I've come to realize and perhaps what they are seeking through their practice. Because I think what happens is, you know, a lot of these, how can I call it, like new age teachers, if I could call it that way, are too far on the other spectrum of don't ever do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, you know, our horses are domesticated. A lot of them are, you know, in livery yards, or they're stabled, and there are a lot of other people around, and we have to teach our horses to be safe. So, you know, so I think in terms of, you know, bridging that gap is so important, because I believe people think it's not accessible to have this kind of relationship with your horse where it is a two-way street, because it's kind of too far removed what a lot of people are teaching. So what I like to do is, if people come to me and they seek advice, it's sort of about showing them how to find the answers within themselves through when they are working with their horses. So for example, you know, you realize that within you that had that agenda. So it's it's about saying, okay, well, less of the time I'm going to come to my horse with an agenda, because there's only kind of a handful of times which we have to have an agenda, like if the vet's coming, or if there are people visiting and we want to get the horse in, or suddenly people are here to help us and this is a good opportunity. And I also think, there's no harm in coming to the horse and everybody's kind of waiting for you down at the barn, and just having a little conversation where you say, I get it. I know you don't feel like this. So you're honoring the horse where they are. And then you kind of have this energy about you that says, can you help me out here? Like as if, how you would speak to a friend, look, I know it's the middle of the night. I really don't want to bother you and your family, but I need support here.
Yeah.
And so our energy shifts, differently. Our energy is different when we come with that. You still are in a loving space. You're still holding the horse and you say, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Totally. And it would be, like you say, the same as if you were coming to a friend and going, hey, like, this is something I'm really needing. Is this the way you can support me right now? Rather than kind of going into the paddock and going, you're just going to have to suck it up and do it, like you wouldn't necessarily talk to your friend like that, I hope.
No, but it's so important to just constantly check in with yourself. Am I being demanding? Am I saying you will, you must? Or am I saying, hey buddy, can you help me out in this instance, because this is where I am today and I only have an hour and I really want to do X, Y, and Z. And that is if you are in the space where, like you say, you're riding and you're training and you are at that space with your horse. And at the Get to the Horse, I like to meet people where they are, and that way creating a bridge. And the more we can tune into what we're feeling when the horse walks away, and we can recognize that in ourselves, the more we can start to be open to the days where a horse walks away and we go, you know what, that's all good.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Totally. I've often said that Diva, my mare, helps people work out their rejection wounds, because you go into the field to be like, I'm going to pet you, the agenda of like, I must touch her. And she's like, no, like that's not a thing. You got a lot more work to do before that's going to happen. So exactly. I definitely understand. And
amazing thing as well is I've just actually shared this with a little group that I've got going at the moment, is even when our horse walks away from us, it can feel very personal, and it can feel like, what am I doing wrong here that the horse doesn't want to be with me? But equally, when our horse canters to us, we kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so amazing, I must be incredible, my horse is coming to me. So at the end of the day, both of those human reactions is our ego. Our ego gets wounded when the horse leaves us, and our ego gets puffed up when the horse comes to us. And it's just recognizing that within us that is playing to behavior and playing to sort of our human thinking. And at the end of the day, if you're in a space where you working on these practices and developing, this, or at least going through the philosophy of the Gift to the Horse, if your horse walks away, it is supposed to be. If your horse comes to you, it is supposed to be. So we really get into that present moment of not getting attached to what happens with the horse, So if my horse walks away, and my horse today, it was so funny. She kind of like was grazing, and I was in the field, and she gave me a look, and she kind of said hello, and then she carried on grazing. And I was actually going to get my pony Twilight, and a few years ago, I would be wounded if she didn't come up and say hello and greet me. And now I just say to her, thank you. I get it. You're busy. I love you. And I carry on. Whereas before I would sit there going, oh my gosh, this must be something wrong with me. My energy is off, la, 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 and get into this spiral of needing to, feel like whatever the horse did would validate how I was feeling. And actually at the end of the day, we can't rely on anything outside of ourselves to make us happy. So if the horse walks off, it shouldn't affect, or it shouldn't need to affect how we feel. If that makes sense. That was also another long answer.
No, I love it. Yeah, that there's some neutrality in that. And I think this conversation bears a little bit more, exploration, because one of the things I've been really chatting with some of my guests and some other people around is this idea, this, shall I call it a myth, of horses being disrespectful. So if this horse, I go up to catch them in the field and they don't come up to me, or other things happen where they resist, there's this, oftentimes it's very pervasive, I know, here in North America, where that it's perceived as a disrespect. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I'm sure you do have thoughts on that. And I would love also, to come into a place of like, okay, what are some other ways to perceive that?
Yeah, and that's an amazing question, because it our human mind would like to have us think the horse walks away, he's disrespecting me, and it kind of keeps us in that zone of, I am the trainer and I am better than, and if my horse doesn't do as I say or as I want him to do, that makes him wrong. And at the end of the day, this horse, their body belongs to them. Their spirit belongs to them. They are their own independent beings. The only reason that we are blessed and honored to have them in our lives is because we've domesticated them. And we have to keep that so in the forefront of our minds, that it was never the horse's choice to be at our beck and call when we've got an hour to race down, And I don't believe a horse is ever disrespectful. They are just giving you feedback all the time that is for your greatest good, so if I'm grooming my horse and he takes a side swipe at me, that's not disrespect, that is feedback. How do I need to change? What do I need to do? How do I need to grow so I can be at a place where I'm coming to this horse and he doesn't feel afraid, he doesn't feel he needs to communicate with me in this way, and really get quiet in my own mind and my own body and listen to what I'm doing that could be causing this in inverted commas disrespect from the horse, or this behavior that I'm perceiving to be disrespectful. And if I'm standing in the field and my horse walks off and I go, oh my God, she's so disrespectful, how does that make me feel? It makes me feel super negative.
Yeah.
But if I'm standing in the field and my horse walks off and I go, thank you, I got some work to do, it's a different energy, and then I feel fabulous. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go read some Eckhart Tolle. We don't get all angry. We just embrace the fact that the horse is walking off, and it is what it is. And if we label it with this negative term, disrespect, it doesn't serve us and it doesn't serve the horse. And we're here to grow and learn and to serve and to bring our love. And along with that, we have to be careful of our language, because, even a word like that, it kind of conjures up this great negativity. And
well, it also, I believe, what I've been really noticing is that it fosters a permission to be harmful to our horses.
Yeah, I love how you put that. That is beautiful what you said. I want to write that down. Because, absolutely. And so we're in this space where we're saying this horse is disrespectful. I need to teach him not to be, and no good can come of that, and when we're in that mindset of I need to get the respect, it's, you don't get respect, you are gifted it. And it's not even respect, it's actually a oneness, and how we treat our horses really is how we treat ourselves. And a lot of the time, if we go out and we say, this one's disrespectful to me, this person judged me, this person did that, and the next thing, it's actually, to me, a reflection of our own insecurity, our own stuff that's going on, our own not enoughness, and Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So, I mean, there's so much there really in terms of that sense of, and I want to track back to this idea of equality, because I know
Yeah.
even in our world right now, I mean, not just in our paddocks, but like,
Yeah.
all around us, and I'm
Yeah.
sure living in South Africa as well, this is something that's around you, this
Yeah.
sense of the sort of ways that we as human beings sort of almost systemically create inequality,
Yeah. Yeah.
to make us feel better about maybe our actions or behaviors. And I mean,
Yeah.
you and I see this in the horse industry, I'm sure, all the time.
Yeah.
So yes, this equality piece, I would love to get more into that after our
Yeah.
dog barking episode here on my end.
No, it's such a beautiful concept. And I actually just posted about it today on my page. And at the Gibbs of Horse, we practice a philosophy of non-separation. And what that basically means is that I don't see myself as any different from anybody else, including every single being that I encounter. So whether it be the lady at the checkout counter, whether it be my horse, whether it be a little bird or a butterfly, I don't see myself as better than or less than. And this is a concept that I've really been exploring a lot in my relationship with horses over the last couple of months, is that when I can be with another being and really embody this concept of oneness, I can never treat another being badly, because we're all one. And if I treat you badly, I'm treating me badly. So I would never even use the term disrespectful, because I'm saying that to myself, just to go back to that other word that we were using, the other word.
The other word.
The word. But, and so, and how I start to see this non-separation is really to get really quiet and really calm, and do a lot of sitting in stillness. You start to recognize that we all come from the same source, we all come from the same light, and nobody is any different than anybody other behind the form. We manifest differently, we have our different stories, we have our different labels, we have our preconceptions of ourselves or others, but at the end of the day, that's just our physical form. That's just our mind telling us, this is my story, or this is how I am, or this is how that person is, or this is what they do and I don't do that. We have to look beyond all that, because all that really is the ego, and see what lies beyond. And what lies beyond is your being, your truth. And when we look at our horses and we can see beyond the physical form, which is very difficult because the horse's form is so beautiful and so muscly and so wonderful, and we want to use that form for our benefit, but at the end of the day, you look beyond all that and you see a being that is domesticated, is effectively stuck with us through no choice of their own. And I can say from my personal experience, when I started to see my horses as no better than me or no different from me, my service just took on another layer, because I was like, well, how would I want to be treated right now? Would I want to be drilled in a lunge ring? No. Would I like to be taken to a grazing patch? Probably. So I started to really dig deep and ask myself how my horse felt in every single interaction. So if she looks up at me in the field and she gives me a little look and she carries on grazing, I'm like, you need to graze. I don't know what's going on inside of your body, I don't know what's happening, maybe that's more important than what I need. And it's a beautiful concept to kind of take beyond the paddock, as you say, because and what I've noticed in my day-to-day practice outside of the stables is when you look beyond the form of another being, you immediately get love. Immediately. It's almost like an instant response, because a lot of people are quite surprised, if when you speak to their truth. And it doesn't have to be a whole big philosophical chat at the checkout counter. It can just be a look that says, yeah, you've been working on your feet for 7 hours, and I just want to know how you're doing. It's and the most powerful thing for me has actually been taking it beyond the paddock.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, one of the questions I have is, I also very much sit in the practice of non-separation and oneness, and yet I know in our world there are systems that are in place. I see this in the horse industry all the time, where there's very well built, solid systems in place that are essentially around the use and oppression of horses. I mean, this is a reflection of other spaces in our world, right? Like I live in Canada, where our Indigenous people have been oppressed terribly for a very, very long time, and that involves systems that are in place, and there's advantages or disadvantages for certain groups of beings within that system. I see in the horse industry that the horses kind of sit at the bottom of that pyramid in terms of the type of power they have in that space. And so I'd love to speak to that. What do you see as far as like the healing of some of those systems, maybe the breakdown or the shift or change of some of those systems? I know that's a big question.
I think, no, that's good. It's a great question. I think that so often, and again, this is my personal experience, so often we want to change the world, and we want to go out and tell other people how they're going wrong, and kind of, we forget that true change really starts with how we choose to live every single moment. So if I can go out in my day-to-day life and meet somebody that has possibly experienced a more of a disadvantaged upbringing than I have, is to treat them exactly how I would treat myself, with love, compassion, kindness, friendship, and be open to what is. I think a lot of times what happens is we feel we can't connect. We feel we're so different. And this is the thing, like you say, with these established structures in the horse world, it's almost like certain disciplines are ring fenced, and you can't communicate with somebody who's on another spectrum of the horse world, where they are maybe highly competitive, or horses are there as a means to an end, or as income, and at the end of the day, in order for me not to bring separation, I have to let go of my stories around the human that is possibly using the horse in a way that is harmful. So I've got to let go of all that and speak to the truth of that human who is no different from me. They are just on a different path, and also know that it's not up to me to change that person's path. It's up to me to shine my light and speak my truth. And if it resonates with that person, it is meant to be. And if it doesn't resonate with that person, that is also meant to be. And just honoring everybody where they are, and just committing to practice this non-separation in every moment of my life. Even if there's a guy behind me in traffic going nuts, it's almost like saying, maybe there's something going on with him that I have nothing and no knowledge about. I can't sit and get angry with him. It's sort of a, having that compassion for people, even if they come to you with anger, or even if they come to you with judgment and criticism. And I really feel that if everybody takes on this practice of seeing the other as themselves, then we wouldn't have separation, because we would understand how I treat you is how I treat myself. And when it comes to horses, like I was saying a little bit before, is when you understand that you are no different to the horse, you would never hurt a horse, or you would never just go and follow along what someone else tells you. You know, we don't call in a specialist and say, how do I raise my or maybe maybe some people are at that point, but you know, when we have children, we sort of feel the situation, we listen to our kids, we work together, we really partner up with each other as a family, you know, and it makes me sad when people seek outside advice for their horses instead of actually trying to understand their horses themselves, because we get outside people coming in and then it's 100 different opinions and we get all confused and we start to apply practices and doctrines that other people believe in, and it just confuses us even more.
Yes, and I've seen that very much. I mean, I'm guilty of that for sure, where it was like, oh, okay, I don't know how to deal with this behavior, you know. And I really think my saving grace is that Diva is very expressive about what she likes and doesn't like.
Yeah,
she comes by her name very honestly. But you know, not all horses are in that space, you know, and I think it can be very easy with certain horses, especially the what I call the stoic ones, that don't really say a lot about, you know, what their experience is. They kind of just you know, they just bear it, I guess. Do you have any sort of advice for everyone out there on reading their horses, or, you know, really starting to understand what is working for their horse or not?
Yeah, and you know, as you say, this is where these mares and any horses that are so expressive are such amazing teachers. They're not the easiest horses to have, and certainly a lot of people that have very expressive horses will sell them and get a more cooperative horse, because, you know, it can be a challenge. But I actually think that the quiet horses are very difficult to read because they're in that state of learned helplessness, where they don't argue anymore. They haven't been heard. They've possibly been punished for expressing. So you've now dealing with an animal who on the surface seems to be, you know, obliging, seems to be okay, seems to be good to work with, and out of the blue it injures somebody because it's had enough of being used. And as a human, we run the risk of, oh, the horse is okay with this, the horse is okay with this, the horse is okay with this, and we ask and ask and ask, and at the end of the day, those horses, in order to really unwind from their learned behavior, need a lot of time to be free. And they also need a lot of time. They need a lot of time from the human to actually really, really, really read their very subtle behavior, because I still believe that a very shut down horse will still very slightly communicate to you when he's happy and when he's not happy. And the key thing I tell to people is always accept the no from your horse. And this kind of goes a little bit against traditional training, because a lot of traditional people will say you must never let your horse say no, because then he thinks he's the boss, and that's not true.
It's the whole like give an inch, take a mile kind of thing that people kind of get scared around. For sure.
And the more you honor your horse when he says no, the more he will feel able to open up to you about what's important to him. So if he absolutely hates being groomed and you've never allowed him to say no, like let's say he shuffles around and he moves around and you kind of jerk him and you say, hey, you got to stand, I got to groom you. You're not allowing that horse to say no. But let's say you start grooming and you notice your horse is kind of crinkling their nose a little bit, the mouth's getting a little bit crinkled, and you say, okay, I get it. You don't want to be groomed right now. That horse will, it's incredible. And I've seen it happen a lot of times. That horse, it's a shift immediately happens. The horse says, or the horse kind of, you get this feeling, the horse is like, hang on a second. They heard what I said through my body language. And what I started to experience with Vari is that she would start to ask me things. So because I was honoring her no, she she would ask me to open the gate through her sort of physical, body language. And then the more no's I embraced, the bigger the yeses became. And it was like unmistakable, and there's nothing quite as amazing as knowing in your heart that your horse wants to be with you 100% without you having to say, oh, but please, won't you just do this for me?
Totally.
Because of the times where you've said, you don't want to be with me, that's also fine. And I think that we have to remember that our horses are, they are sentient beings. They're always in flux. They're always changing. They're just like us. They have their days. They have their moods. And what often happens is when we're in traditional programs and when we are training our horses, we expect them to always be improving. If you did this yesterday, you've got to be able to do it today. And you've got to maybe even do it a little bit better. And what I really learned through my yoga practice is that every single day is a new day, and every day your body feels different. So on one day I might be able to do a certain posture, and then if I slept wrong, or I had a bad night, or I sat too long in my chair at work, I might not be able to do the same thing I did yesterday. And our expectation of our horses is just so huge. They must keep improving, they must keep learning, they must keep giving us the years. And at the end of the day, it's like, how would we feel if our husbands always expected us to be the same day in and day out? People are not like that. Beings are not like that. Everybody, especially if you have a mare, they're in their cycle. And, some days you just know they want to be with the geldings.
Totally, right?
Have no interest in them. So,
and they really don't feel like you sitting up there, on their back.
No, exactly. And in cases like that, if you're wanting to go for a ride and you notice, okay, while you're tucking up, my mare is getting a little bit agitated, what a beautiful thing to say to that horse, I know how you feel. Let's leave it for today. Maybe we just go and graze.
Totally.
Because I think even as people, we know if I get on this horse now, she's in season, it's going to be a bit of a rough ride, but we still want to go down that path. I think it's this sort of conditioned thinking that we've got to do what we want to do. We had a plan, we got to stick to it.
Yeah.
And we've got to be a little bit more open to what is, because maybe we're not meant to be riding a horse today. Maybe we're not meant to be, doing what we're supposed to be doing. There's a greater plan out there, and we block it all the time because we like, but I had a plan.
I have a plan. I mean, and I'm sure, I know I've had lessons that have been fairly funny on that level, where I've ignored those, shall we call them, intuitive hits, or, ignored the body language, right? And been like, I have this thing that I need to do. I've definitely wound up at least once on my back in the mud without a horse underneath me anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And then you think back and you think, but she didn't want me to get on.
No, it was very, very clear. I even had a voice in my head going, you should be off now. And I was like, no, it's fine.
Totally. And with horses, we always have this voice in the head that says, should I really be doing this? Or, and the more we sort of are open to what our intuition is telling us, the clearer it becomes. And then it's like, well, no, you really shouldn't be doing this. I mean, I had an instance with Vari about a year ago. I was doing her feet. And it was windy and it was stormy, and I had 1 hour and I needed to go back and fetch the kids. And I was determined, and she was fidgeting, she was fussing, and I was like, girl, we've got to get this done. And the voice in the head kept saying to me, this is dangerous, this horse is unsettled, the wind is blowing, she was probably in season as well. And I just had that sort of plan in my head that I had to get the feet done now. And she nearly fell on top of me. She got such a huge fright. And I took a huge step back, and I was like, oh my gosh, why am I not choosing to listen to this voice that's here actually to guide me, to support me, to keep me safe? Why am I ignoring this voice? And that was an extreme example. And it was such a good reminder to me to stay present to my inner knowing, to my intuition. And it's also, this is why we have accidents with horses, is because they are giving us warning signs. Our intuition is giving us warning signs, and we blast through it because we have an agenda.
Yep, we have a plan. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I think that listening piece, that, tuning in and being willing to change the plan, being willing to be flexible in those moments is so key, because we are working with, they're huge, powerful animals. This is the way that we do stay safe in their presence. And it's the way that they actually support us in being safe. I often wonder and think back to that time when the voice came up in my head and I thought, was that Diva, or like, what was that? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like not a minute later, we were walking past a pond and a huge heron flew out of the pond.
Oh my gosh.
Right towards us. And that was when I landed on my back in the mud. And my horse, it was, kind of twilight, getting quite dark. And Diva's very dark. And she was just, I was still hanging the rope, of course, because we never let go, do we? But it was, she was about, 10 feet, as far as her lead rope would allow her to be away from me and the heron. So, it was right away that something happened. And since then, though, I pay attention because, that was a very big reminder, just like your incident was as well, of, okay, there's information here, if I choose to receive it.
Yeah, absolutely. And all the time we're being guided, and we've been through our horses, through our inner knowing, through our environment, through what's happening. And the more we tune in and stop worrying about what we think we need out of the moment and just be present in the moment, the clearer the guidance becomes. And it's beautiful, because what makes us say we got to do the feat today? Are we going to risk our lives to get something done, or are we going to just embrace the fact that the horse is not ready to have their feet done? And I think a lot of people might sort of say to that, oh, but the horse isn't disciplined enough, or the horse is being disrespectful. And it's when you look at it this way, it's never about that. It's about, what is this moment showing me? And maybe even that moment is showing me that I need to do a little bit refining around our safety. So on a calm day, when I'm feeling up for it, and when I know Vari is open to it, we can practice safety again. So it's not about making the horse stand in that moment and getting angry about it or frustrated. It's about saying, okay, I got to work on myself. I got to listen to my intuition, and I need to support my horse to remind her that I'm a small human, and if I'm holding a foot, she needs to try and balance for me.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And also, if our horses are struggling, just on the trimming example, to balance on 3 legs, it might mean that they've got a lot of tightness across the back or across the hindquarters, and they're not actually able to stand. And getting angry and frustrated, it's not going to change the fact that the horse is possibly stiff behind. And there's a reason, there's always a reason why, and a valid reason why. This is their body, and we are handling it, and we have to treat it with such deep love and respect and compassion.
Absolutely. I mean, something as simple as doing feet trimming is a big deal for a horse to come off of one leg, to be, essentially demobilized. It's a huge trust thing. And I think we sometimes take that for granted. So yeah. Thank you for that reminder.
Well, I think also, how you say, we are demobilizing the horse, and then being a prey animal, they're not going to be able to run away if you're holding one foot up. So, physiologically, they can get very triggered by that situation. If the wind is blowing, the horses are down at the other end of the other horses are down at the other end of the paddock, and I'm standing up here at the barn on 3 legs. You're asking for trouble in an environment that's not calm and conducive to a calm horse. It's it really gets down to their prey nature.
Absolutely. Well, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you today, Lara. This hour went by so fast.
Oh, you're joking. It's been an hour already.
It's crazy.
No.
Yes. I want to just invite you, Lara, to share how to get in touch with you, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there that are listening in that want to follow your page and be, tuned into what you're up to. So what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you so much. The best way really at the moment is Facebook. That's where we do a lot of posting and a lot of free content. So it's The Gift of the Horse on Facebook. And I do have a website, thegiftofthehorse.com, that I'm really building quite slowly. So there's not too much content on there at the moment, but there will be. And we also have we have 2 courses that we offer as well. We do a mindfulness practice, which is an immersion of a group of people. At the moment, I'm taking 10 people at a time, where we just go deeper on the Gift of the Horse philosophy. Yeah. And I sort of felt called to do a more personal approach, because a lot of people were asking me a lot of the same questions, and I thought, okay, how can I best serve, most of the common questions and queries? So I've just built this little program where people can come on and they're part of a community, and we just go deeper into the philosophy.
Nice. That sounds lovely. Oh, thanks for sharing.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. I love talking to you.
Yeah, it's been great. Well, we'll definitely need to do it again. And
amazing.
Yes, I want to thank everybody out there who has tuned in today and taken the time out of their day to have a listen. And hopefully, I know I've learned something. Hopefully you have as well. Much appreciated to all of you. And thank you again, Lara. It's been wonderful chatting.
Thank you so much. Thank you.